welcome back to Pedal and Ash. I wanted to do a quick update video. Nothing too serious. Um, like I said, this channel's mostly for me, so we're gonna see how this goes. So here we're looking at my bullet journal again. Um, some things changed, and that's why I wanted to do this. So as I thought, quartet is kind of kicking my butt, which is not a bad thing. Um, it's been a while since I studied N3, and while I do speak Japanese on a daily basis, I speak kind of, let's just say, it leaves much to be desired. So for this, you can see that I've been studying a fair amount of hours. Over here in the study log, we've been doing pretty well. This is a scale of up to 5 hours, which my goal is to try to do like up to 3 on a day off or something, but I put it up to 5 just so that I could have like it look real pretty or something and have like that space. Uh, so let's get into it a little bit. So I'm gonna shut this actually and move it off. And what I do want to put up here is uh, quartet for a little bit. So quartet, I'm using uh, the first book. Wow, that's got a there you go, that's better. I'm using the first book, and so the first book comes with the supplement. The supplement is just vocabulary and kanji. And so I'm pretty sure other people do this too. I go through and I put all of the vocabulary and kanji I don't know into Migaku. I'm sure other people use like Anki or something like that. And then I tried the way that was recommended to me, which was to go through the grammar first and then do the reading. And I find that it's not bad. Like, I'm not going to say it's bad, but I don't know if that's what I want to do. So I might, for chapter 2, go through and start with just the reading. Because, of course, I won't, like, understand greatly, but that's fine. What I want to do, of course, is understand in the end. So that's kind of the thing there. Uh, Also, with quartet, one of the things that I find that I really like is that it's kind of clearly set up. Um, I had thought about buying Tobia and going through that kind of trauma, just take your trauma, get it over with. But I thought that since it's been so long since I've studied, that maybe having an English crutch would be a good idea. And I think it has been, particularly for explaining the grammar. Uh, some of the grammar I already know, but there are some new things in there or some things that I have forgotten. Um, I did, of course, check over like Genki 2, Genki 1, just to see if there's any vocabulary or kanji that I should know that is going to be in quartet. But I find that, yeah, there's no reason to really go back there for me. So that was good. The other thing I have, which I think is most important as I like pull books to like put on here, is the workbook. Um, Mostly because like there's not a lot of practice on the grammar without the workbook. So I think the workbook is an important buy when you get quartet. And it wasn't that expensive. I think I spent about 4,000 yen, somewhere around that. So I don't think it was too bad. Um, if you look at some of the other sources, they'll tell you, right? Oh, I've bought all the textbooks to let you know. But I chose quartet just purely for the English. So for this, I do try to keep the book, like the actual textbook, in a good condition, just in case I want to restudy anything. The workbook, on the other hand, I'm destroying basically. Like I'm ripping out the pages and trying my best to like do them well, I should say. I do have the answer key to help me out, but a lot of the questions don't really have like one answer. So that's something to keep in mind if you do quartet, is that there's not always just one answer to the question, especially if you're like me and you're not a student. Maybe the answer isn't quite like the answer that will come to your mind is not being like a study abroad, like Yunarari Yugakse. So there is that to keep in mind. So that's kind of the big thing with Quartet. I do like it a lot. Uh, the other thing I want to put out there is I'm still looking at my other books. So there is still my kanji book for N3. I'm only set to do 2 chapters of that. The first chapter is all kanji I know, so I didn't worry too much about that. But next week, I have to look over the second chapter. And so that's when I'll decide if there's any kanji I don't know there. Um, but I'm imagining no. I know a fair amount of kanji from doing RTK before. So mostly it's just making sure I know the meanings and if there's anything special or fancy there. Uh, so, but one thing I want to highlight, and I'll remove these books to put on a new book, is that it's a good idea to buy yourself some good paper. So I've been using the smaller version of it, but getting this kind of, oh, that's backwards, little notebook that has like the area squares to write kanji to help you like with size. So you can see my writing's not that great. That's not the point. The point is it is good to write kanji to help for your memory. You can do wani kani, which I think is a success for a lot of people, but it didn't do much for me because just I'm better if I write it down at least a couple of times. So that was a big thing there. Uh, then, like I said, with Quartet, it is kicking my butt, which means there are some things that are difficult. So I do want to highlight a book that I mentioned but maybe didn't show too well, and that is this training book. Sorry, it's not the official cover because I take all the covers off, as you might have noticed. But this is step by step training in reading Japanese. This is the pre intermediate. I've already completed the beginner book, and probably next week when I do my break from Quartet, because I'm thinking of taking a break, I'm going to go through this book a little bit. The reason for that is, as you can see here, there's shorter passages. Let me go to the actual, yeah, area that I'm thinking of reviewing. Here you go. So there's shorter passages, but there are actual passages. This is an N3 directed book, and so I do recommend it if you're having reading trouble. Like that's why I did the beginner book when it came out, just to check my reading ability and to get myself a little bit there. I have mostly just kind of comprehension issues, I think. So that's what I want to work on with this book. And so I'm going to take a couple days break from Quartet next week when I finish the chapter 1 basics and go through that. And so what I want to do, and I think I'm not explaining myself clearly, very sorry, but what I want to do is go through each chapter of Quartet kind of slowly. And so I've done about half of the first chapter, and I'm going to do the writing exercise next, probably on Sunday. And then after that, I'm going to take a break for a couple of days to focus on reading purely, checking over my kanji book, and then possibly adding some more grammar points in. I know that sounds like a lot because I've already done the 9 grammar points in Quartet into my system, but there is still Grammar Buddy that I want to do. Although I haven't decided if I'm going to do that or if I'm going to leave it till I finish Quartet. I think originally I was supposed to do 4 chapters of it, but with the way Quartet's kicking my butt, I feel like that's not a good idea. Then, one thing did change about my system, and that is that well, the system itself, because the books are all like all over the place, unfortunately. And that is that I decided to start using Boon Pro. And I want to highlight that it's Boon Pro, not Boon Po. I figured that was a thing when I was looking into this. But I had Boon Pro a long time ago and then never used it. I mean, that's part of like being a language learner is you collect lots of sources and sometimes you forget that you bought it. Or in this case downloaded it. So luckily they gave me another free trial and I've been testing that out and I like it so far. So I have until February, I think 4th, to decide if Boon Pro is something that I want to keep in the loop. I'm using it to practice the Quartet grammar as well as a couple of grammar points that I learned from like Genki or uh, my N4 JLPT books that I'm still just a little bit shaky on. There's no shame in being shaky on a grammar point. Grammar is hard. So I think that's the major points of the update. Um, this was a little bit all over the place, partially because I'm all over the place. Um, but just as a thing, here were all of my sources of things that I use. So it's really just this book, uh, Grammar Buddy, the N3, because I'm still focused on N3 stuff, and I'll slide Quartet on top of that. It looks like a lot, but it's really not a lot, honestly. Uh, Especially since I'm still figuring out all the ins and outs of how I'm going to use it. The important thing, I think, is the distinction of them. So, Quartet has a lot of good points and a lot of things you need to learn, but I don't think it's really fully sufficient to get you to N3, particularly with the grammar, which is why I wanted something extra. Um, for grammar, especially since I remember from originally trying to study N3 grammar with Samatome many years ago that there were more grammar points than what I was seeing in Quartet. Um, so that is, I think that next week I'm going to upload another study with me. I think this time I'm going to try to do music on it because one of the things that happens is I read aloud, I mumble, and I don't know if anyone would really want to hear that kind of sounds in a study with me. Um, I will admit that I mostly do study with me's because I feel myself studying and it makes me feel all special. So if no one watches it, I guess that's okay. Uh, Honestly, if no one watches it, I guess that's better for me. So then, I think that's all for this update. It's not too terribly long. I will, like I said, next week I'm going to upload a study with me. And then after that, I'll probably do some other kind of content video. I was thinking about doing something either grammar involved or vocabulary involved, or even just uh, some kind of maybe reading aloud text or something. I made my icon, my VTuber bigger because I wasn't really gonna like show you things small to look at. Uh, and I think that's everything. So thank you for watching as always. If you have some study point that you want to point out or any comments on the books that I've shown, feel free to leave a comment. But I imagine that everyone has many books just like I do. So good luck to us all. See you in the next video.